All right, BCA-101 Introduction to Computers. We're going to take the assessment on Friday in PC 229. These are the notes and the things we talked about. I'm going to review those. We'll start right up here. We talked about data, and data is managed in databases, making tables in databases. And we did a simple example. So you have students, student ID, name, phone number, and all of these fields, which are attributes, relate back to students. You want those attributes to relate directly back to students. And then we talked about college has courses, and the information in here relates directly to courses. And we said there's faculty at a college, for example, 007, Mike Dirksen. All the information, these attributes here, relate to a faculty member. And then we said a specific term, we can have a particular student taking a particular course. Now, it's more complex than what we got here, but this gives you an idea of tables and then how the tables relate. For example, here we have a faculty ID can be used up here. This particular faculty person teaches this course. And this course right here is currently being taken by this student. Get it? See? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that becomes what is known as a relational database. And in the assignment, we go through this pretty thoroughly in the assignment, explaining how that actually works. But this is really true. In the real world, we have lots of relational databases. There are products out there that are proprietary, they cost you money, and then there are open source products that you can use free, like MySQL. And then you can run that on a computer with Apache web server, which then could allow you and run it on Linux, all that open source, and you can use some more open source language to actually write code to access information in and out of those databases. Okay? So, those tables interact. And as an example, this must be unique for the student, that student ID number, so we call that a primary key. When we use that in another table, it's called a foreign key. So there would be a foreign key, and we can relate those all together. We talked some more about managing data. We use hardware, software, and communications in order to work at managing data. And we talked about products, procedures, policies, and so forth. A few terms with security. The data, which we're talking about in this class, but you could think of any asset, something that has value, and then is there a threat on the asset? Okay, is there something that can destroy or steal or do something to the asset? If you live on the coast in Florida, you always have the option of a hurricane destroying your assets, your data. Here in the Midwest, a tornado could come through and destroy our computers and thus destroy our data. People can steal it, manipulate it, all those things. So the data is what we're typically talking about in this class. Is there an asset? Is there a threat? Is there something that could happen to it? Is there somebody that can carry it out? Like, we don't have to typically worry about hurricanes in Iowa, but we have to worry about tornadoes. Okay? And is there a vulnerability? Could it actually happen? Okay? Could it actually happen? And so that's what risk is. Risk is trying to decide what are the odds of having something of value and a threat to it, something that can carry out the threat, and what are the odds that's going to happen. Okay? So once then we figure out the risk, how much we're willing to spend or do to manage the risk. We can either say we're not going to do anything, just leave it, and if it happens, it happens, or we can try to mitigate the risk, try to secure it, back it up, do all kinds of things to make sure we protect it as best we can, or we can transfer the risk. Some people use both methods, the last two. They transfer the risk by buying insurance. So if something does happen, the insurance takes care of it. Or you might buy a policy on your iPhone, so if you drop it, step on it, destroy it, the insurance recovers it. So your phone is your asset. Is there something bad can happen to it? Who could carry it out? Maybe you are the threat agent yourself. How vulnerable are you? What's the chances that could happen? And so that's how you develop risk. Issues with data, we didn't list all of them in the world, but data can be stolen and manipulated. There's all kinds of legal consequences. When data is stolen from a company, they're bound to report it. We use a couple examples in class. Businesses want to maintain productivity. Cyber terrorism, that's where we would get some kind of attack that would affect large parts of our country. We used the example, close down the power grid so we don't have power. If we were out of power for, let's say, 20 days, 30 days, that could create terror within parts of our country, or all of it, depending on how widespread it was. Identity theft, people steal your identity and then use your identity to open up credit somewhere else so you don't know that's actually happening. The pattern, hackers, just as one example, they do reconnaissance. We're going to look at that a little more in depth as the year finishes up. Then they find places to scan. They scan and look for open ports, look for old software that has vulnerabilities. They hack in. Then they try to escalate their privileges. They try to follow and watch and maybe steal passwords that allow them to become administrators for the device. They can create backdoors and so forth to the device. We talked about how important having a policy is concerning security, and we talked about authentication, authorization, and accounting. And we had those on the board the other day. So, these were the notes from today. The test is on Friday. We'll take it right here in PC 229.